Hey aspirants, welcome to Insights IAS initiative. Today, though it is 3 days almost to the completion of Constitution Day, which was celebrated on 26th of November, we are still getting many articles in popular newspapers about how the Constitution has played a role till now in India's building, and also how it's going to strengthen or how it can be used as a force to bring many positive changes not only for the country but also for the world. So with this perspective, we'll come to the first article of the day. If you read the title, it is very interesting because it is talking about rethinking Indian constitution for Anthropocene. So if you remember the concept of Anthropocene, it is that period in the geological time scale where human has brought radical changes on the face of the earth due to industrialization and carbon emissions, leading to climate change related idea. So in this Anthropocene, constitution cannot just talk about political rights or political and social or human rights of the people. It needs to take a broader note of integration with the world ideas as well. So let us continue one by one. It is quite a long article, so please stay with us with patience. So constitution as a locus of radical change, as we have seen, constitution has brought many beautiful changes in the country for bringing social equality. It has had a major role in eradicating untouchability as a concept. It has brought equality to women in polity by giving universal adult franchise. So it has already played a radical change player. But the author in this article talks about this constitution should evolve to address contemporary challenges. Let's say it should also include ecological responsibilities. As we know, fundamental duties and DPSPs contain about environmental concerns, but we still do not have it majorly as a right, though courts have interpreted in their uh, judgments related to Article 21. So, if we incorporate the concepts like ecological responsibility and the idea of ethical governance in Constitution itself, so this would go a long way in bringing radical changes, especially at a time when humans have been ruling the most part of the world through their activities. So the next concept the author discusses here about insights from national movement. That is, the author here makes a very beautiful statement which can definitely be part of your mains question as well. So constitution makers, or let's say the whole freedom fighters, they aspired for something called as civilizational change that India needs to undergo. Remember the term civilizational change. So as a whole civilization, we had to undergo many changes once we are independent, and constitution definitely has been successful in that. So in the same article, we also discuss about a concept called post industrial vision. Remember to utilize them in your paper 3 economy topic, post industrial concept. So post industrial is the idea where the author talks about coexistence of three major aspects. That is, one is nature, the second we can talk about is craft that has enriched India from a lot of time, and the third one is industry. So post industry idea is the development which is relying on the crux of nature, craft and industry, and he calls it to be the best model for sustainable development. If we make this as a part of the constitution, we'll be better game changers in the whole world. So coming to the next topic, they talk about Anthropocene exactly and constitutional responsibility that we mentioned in the first topic. So Anthropocene is nothing but it's a geological epoch where human activity is dominant force, that is bringing many ecological and in fact existential crises as well. So what are the challenges we have brought? We have brought challenges like war, we have challenges like genocide that is going on in the world, we have the issues of deforestation that is rampant in the whole world. We are trying to degrade ecology in many perspectives. So the author tells that we have to demand a constitutional response beyond just human rights and try to give solutions to all these problems. Though at the national level we may feel this is not so practically implicable, but if you see the ethical aspect or if you make this work, this is a very good concept to make the whole world peaceful. And also goes hand in hand with India's concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, where Indian ethos and Indian ideas inspire the whole world. So, if we make it as a part of the constitutional responsibility itself, we will be better faced to tackle Anthropocene as an era. Okay, so the next concept author told here was about reimagining governance and democracy. That is, for us, democracy till now holds a narrow meaning like free and fair elections, a government by the people, of the people. But here, the author tells that it's not only the people who need to be a part of democracy, it is also nature. That is, we should make nature as a stakeholder in making the democracy successful. If nature is not included in any of our policies or even in our constitution, we may not be able to excel in an Anthropocene approach. So we have to, add ideas in the constitutions like responsibility of protecting the commons. That is, forest and other ecological resources shared by everybody. It is talk about focusing on region centric responsibility of the people. So this is a going to be a transition. That is, we are going to bring in new changes in our constitution. Once we decide it, the governance should step in where it's made easy for people to transit to a new idea of constitution. So this may seem ideal to a great extent, but these thoughts would enrich your essays with respect to climate change and all of these. Okay, so next comes the topic of ethical dimensions of governance here. So you can definitely apply this to your GS paper 4 has as well. So here the author tells that we should use from a time immemorial, India has been a country which does good storytelling to its children to imbibe many good values. So how about storytelling and certain myth making in a positive way that will help governance to reshape our collective consciousness, let's say for the purpose of social harmony and ecological benefit. So this storytelling part that has been part of Indian culture needs to be made or used by governance as a positive model to take the idea of environment ethics to the general public, especially children. Right, next is pedagogic and conceptual shift. That is, we talk about environmental science in our syllabus, but hardly we know the importance given by our teachers when this is taught in our school. Though the author here tells that all the universities that are educating the youth, educational frameworks, they must reflect constitutional changes. That is, once we change the constitution to make nature as a stakeholder, the syllabus and the pedagogy also should change, integrating nature, ethics, and civic responsibility of the people. So, if you recall what Rabindranath Tagore had told in our previous last but one episode, Rabindranath Tagore had the same idea of including nature in his education and education in the nature. So, do watch that video to get clarity on what this exact concept is talking about. The last but one topic here is constitution and cultural revival. So here the author talks about creating a UNESCO 2.0 version, which is nothing but UNESCO that will give importance to vernacular languages, try to deliver all the texts of important climate documents and climate ideas in local languages. So when vernacular accessibility and regional interconnectedness will increase, we can definitely make world a better place, and it is the localized content in these form that will enrich the lives of the people and contribute to better ecological growth. So the last point, or we can just see how we can apply this in your various papers. So as told, in ethics topic we can talk about the ideas of responsibility through constitution. We can talk about justice when we have questions on justice. Incorporating environmental responsibility would be a good usage, or especially in GS paper 3 conservation topic, if you get a question with respect to natural conservation, do mention how complicated things have now become in the Anthropocene era. So remember to use the word Anthropocene in your climate related topics to make it more effective. So governance aspect also we can link it to it. When governance is coming, we can highlight how vernacular language is needed, how ecologically we have to instill the ideas through storytelling and all of them. And definitely when it comes to essay, you can talk about Swaraj in the modern context, where we'll merge nature, craft, and industry, taking Indian economic and industrial development to a great extent. So, this was a very complex article. It took a lot of time to analyze and bring out the point for you. Do note it down to enrich your answers. The next topic for the day is compassion or coercion. So it is about a bill that is going to be placed in the British Parliament, and the member of Parliament are going to make an emotional debate over a very important concept called assisted suicide. So it's also called as active euthanasia. So as most of us are aware, what is euthanasia here? It is especially a concept where people who are terminally ill, or doctors have made a statement that the individual may not be able to make for longer period of time, and gives a kind of limited months for them to survive. So if they are suffering from any disease, so the idea is that instead of suffering from the pain that the illness is giving, and knowing the fact that you're going to die very soon, this option called active euthanasia or assisted suicide talks about allowing the individual to die by themselves or commit suicide, so that with the permission of the state, so that the pain is gone and they die a dignified life according to their choice. So why this is emotional? We know the idea when a person is ill, and how the family members would be in a state of shock when the illness is told, and especially when there is a clarity on when the individual is going to die. This trauma is something no family can undergo very easily. So in such cases, the individuals, if they feel and prefer that they don't want to continue this trauma, they can end the life. So in India's case, we still do not have active euthanasia practice where the person can be allowed to lose their life. But Supreme Court in one of its judgments has told that we may allow for passive euthanasia, but only in the cases of living will given by the person. So passive euthanasia is if a person is in a vegetative state and they are given some life support system. These life support system will just be withdrawn, which will automatically lead to death of a person instead of actively injecting a drug to kill them. So with this background, let us see what are the provisions of this bill, or what practice they have done. It would be very relevant for our discussions in paper 4. So this is a bill which where the court tells the parliament is planning to make it only for people who are 18 years and above. This is a clause that is kept. England and Wales, or who have, the second condition is they should be diagnosed with terminal illness by the doctors, and the doctors would have told that they don't have more than 6 months to survive. So in this case, lethal drugs would have to be self-administered with the permission of 2 doctors and a judge. Okay, so this is a committee that should approve a legal suicide, or let's say assisted suicide, only then it can happen. So this would be a landmark legislation in UK, because suicide till 1961 here was declared to be a criminal offense, as it was in India also based on the UK inspiration. And in 1961 till very lately, we can tell around 1967 as well, the idea of abortion or artificially taking out a natural life was frowned upon by the UK people. But if you see, many of the countries and have gone ahead to take away with the idea that suicide is mainly a mental health issue, they need a support and not a criminal offense, and abortion is a right of a woman. So when it comes to this decision where a person is allowed to die by an assisted suicide, it is definitely going to be a landmark decision for those who have undergone trauma. But for us, if you see where this could be relevant, it is relevant from the ethical nuances that it throws at us. So if you see, what are the dilemmas or conflicts we might occur when we pass a bill like this in UK, or even when we allow passive or active euthanasia in India. So first is the idea of autonomy versus individual rights. So autonomy is individuals, they have the autonomy versus, sorry, it is autonomy and individual rights. So many people argue that everybody has a right to make decisions about their own life, that is at what time and how to die. When there is right to life, people argue that there should be right to death as well. At the same time, critics worry about how social and family pressure might compromise genuine autonomy. That is, a person may be coerced with fear, telling that if you die, or maybe threatened to kill themselves or choose assisted suicide. So, whether the autonomy is coming from free will or it is coerced autonomy, is something which might put us into ethical implications later on. So the second is slippery slope argument. Why this concept is called as a slippery slope argument is that legalizing assisted dying, it might lead to broader acceptance of euthanasia in the country. But what would be the problem? It would become popular in clear cut cases like mental health conditions or social suffering. So even in these cases, people will go for assisted suicide. This is not the purpose of the whole law. It is for physical suffering and the mental trauma they go undergo because of physical suffering, not because of mental illness alone, which is curable. So the third idea is vulnerable populations would have a challenge. That is, the protection of vulnerable groups, especially if we take the idea of elderly people in the country, or people who are disadvantaged or mentally or physically challenged. Even for them, or let's say a person who is economically disadvantaged, they may be used under coercion, or they may be abused to make sure they accept this option. So it would lead to exploitation of vulnerable population. So how it impacts the society in the long run? It tries to influence attitude towards disability, aging, and almost elderly care. That is, anyway you have the choice to die, then why are you living still, or why are you still having a choice of continuing a life by giving trouble to everybody around? So this would kind of make the lives of the people less important who are coming under this category. Hence, the whole society may perceive the notion of assisted suicide in a negative manner. The next one is the ethical dilemma we can talk about, that is tormenting medical professionals here. So their traditional role, what is the role of a doctor? To save lives and to heal people. But here, how would the doctor feel to go against their own promise and potentially their own against their own profession, that you can allow a person to die because they may not live? So it may alter the whole concept of trust on the medical fraternity, whether they are telling truly or there is any coercion in their decision as well. So it will make the life of medical professionals very challenging. And what are the legal issues that come out of it? There should be some strict criteria and a kind of mechanism to prevent misusing this under ethical concerns. So it's like verifying consent or checking that really the person has told a yes, or making sure that government will sponsor some alternative care events if they really want to trouble their families. Or should have something called as an ethics committee along with the doctors and judges to help them make the decision in a better way. So that would be a challenge and very difficult to implement. So next target that would make impact is religious and cultural perspective. So many religion, they oppose the idea of active euthanasia, telling that life and death are under divine jurisdiction. It's created by the almighty or the nature. And culture, it may try to shape the attitude and ethical interpretations, telling that how can human take the role of the divine who creates lives. At the last but a very important point here is dignity in death. So those who support this tell that how important it is to live a life of dignity. It is equally important to die with the same dignity, because the person who is dying with dignity, they would always prefer to be free from prolonged pain or kind of terminal illness that always kills them from within. So that would definitely not give them dignity even when they are living. So they would better choose to die with dignity rather than stay alive without any dignity. So if you want to arrest, let's say if we get a question in paper 4, as in what is the meaning of ethical dilemma, and give examples from real life to explain this concept, you can aptly give the example of abortion as a case, right of the fetus versus right of the mother. You can also give the case of compassion or coercion as the same title under assisted suicide. So remember this concept to add in your GS paper 4 notes. So the next topic is a concept, or we can call that there is a new genre of tourism that has caught the attention of the world, but uh, it is not having a positive name, and the idea is called dark tourism. So what do we mean by this idea of dark tourism? It is a concept where people would prefer to visit sites that are associated with death. It is associated with some kind of tragedy, a kind of disaster that has brought devastation in the area, or let's say even concentration camps in case of Germany as well. So why is this relevant is in the today's Indian Express and Hindu paper we had the news that amid war Ukraine sees influx of Western visitors as a part of dark tourism. That is, Westerners, especially from USA, who want to experience how it is a place looks after a war, immediate aftermath of the war, they're flowing to Ukraine in large number. So this concept is not new. Just a few months ago, in the month of June and July, when India's Wayanad landslides had occurred, just a few months into it, a few weeks into it, many people showed interest in visiting the place, not just for the tourist beauty that it once provided, but also to see how devastated a beautiful land like Wayanad has become. So, if we analyze this, there are many positive angles to this concept, even though it comes with a negative notion called dark tourism. So, why is it positive? If let's check it first. So, it will create historical awareness. That is, in future, if let's say, for example, in India we have Jallianwala Bagh Memorial. So Jallianwala Bagh definitely is not a place India would celebrate in the history. It's a moment of pain which motivated the other freedom movements in the country. So despite this, the memorial is created to help people identify how tragically Indian freedom fighters have fought and undergone the pain during the colonial time, and it helps them to connect themselves with the land that they have been born in. Same is the case of Hiroshima Peace monument or memorial that we talk about. It tries to draw attention to the fact of how harmful nuclear wars can turn into. So, culturally, if we talk about the significance, it explores how society tried to memorialize suffering and maintain a collective memory. That is, Jallianwala Bagh incident is something that an Indian can never forget, and we would still keep the pain alive, not because the idea that we would like to keep remembering all those things. The idea is about so many thankless lives that were lost in the Jallianwala Bagh incident, the innocent people. It has further the cause of Indian freedom struggle as a memory for those people. We have memorialized the suffering. So if you take, there would be economic aspects as well, because if you see death, tragedy, disaster, concentration camp, or even something like a Jallianwala Bagh incident, it would have shattered the local governments really bad, even in the case of Ukraine. So if these kind of tourists come in large number, it would slowly try to revive the local economy, helping the whole place to grow again, so that they start becoming economically empowered. So at the same time, it would have a major role in empathy building. It would be completely different when we read about wars in the book and go on the ground to witness how a war scene actually look like. So that empathy will go a long way in enriching the ideas in the future generation that war is definitely not a solution for any problem that comes to the world. At the end of the day, it is the negotiations that would work. So with these many positive aspects, then why are we not so happy with the concept of dark tourism? It is because of the following negative notions that it brings along with it. So it has many ethical consequences, because in the area where the tragedy has happened, people would have lost their loved ones. They would have close memories of the area which now doesn't exist. For example, the case of Wayanad. So they have still not come out of the trauma and the pain that has occurred, and by this time if the tourists pour in, it would be an ethical imbalance where they don't have an option but to choose their economic growth, but at the same time their mind and hearts are not ready to welcome the tourist as wholeheartedly as before, due to the tragedy that they have suffered. So this ethical consequence is something we must take into note, especially when it comes to tragic areas. it might have environmental considerations or consequences too, because just because of huge population, many tragedies would have occurred, and with more and more people visiting the place, like how we have for ecotourism, it may lead to environmental degradation. And the last is very important, that is sensitivity with which a tourist behaves when they go to these places versus the popularity that the place is having. So a place may be very important tour in the tourist map of the world, but when we go there, it is not the place in itself, but the people who make the place a lively entity for us to enjoy the tourist place. So we should also understand the sensitivity of the people when people undertake dark tourism as a concept. So remember, when you get essay questions like even in pain, or when every other door is closed, definitely there will be another door that would open up opportunities for us. So dark tourism is one such idea to open the new opportunities for a war ravaged or disaster attacked country or a region. So the last topic today is, as you have all requested for the bookshelf to continue, today we will discuss about another important environmentalist in India who is not of an Indian origin, but it's not only that she was adopted by the country, she adopted India as her home. And her name is none other than Meera Bain. Meera Bain is very popularly known as Gandhiji's English daughter. She was adopted by Gandhiji and used to follow Gandhiji in all his movement, highly getting inspired from his simplistic ideas of environmental coexistence. So once Gandhiji passed away, Miraben moves to a European country back. But even when she was present there, she has always written letter to Indian leaders. Like we have Jawaharlal Nehru, uh, we have Indira Gandhi. All of them were very closely associated with Miraben. So used to constantly write letters to Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Lal Bahadur Shastri, and other leaders, as in how to take India's development story forward by keeping environment and ecology into consideration and not just going for GDP growth. So we'll analyze her ideas one by one here. So here today we'll mainly focus on agriculture environmentalism, or the concept of how agriculture and forests, or agriculture and nature, have a close tie with each other and they nurture each other for earth's benefit. So if you see, the first concept she discusses is a kind of pain. She expresses that Mother Earth, or the nature, has blessed humanity with abundant riches, fresh water, sunlight, and forest, and everything that a human needs for survival. And it is, she calls it to be the love of the Mother Nature. At the same time, she expresses pain that humanity is not taking care of the mother in the same emotional manner. So she goes on to tell that if you really want to enrich the earth or enrich Mother Earth, please focus on farmyard manure. That is, she talks about cow dung collection by the farmers, and this cow dung can be composed in the households itself and used as a manure in the field. So she tells that if we add chemical fertilizers to the land year by year, the fertility of the soil nothing but decreases. At the same time, if you add manure or cow dung or farmyard manure, the whole earth gets richer day by day and year by year. And this should be the secret behind India's growth story, and not the establishment of chemical and fertilizers factories, because the factories would ill-treat the Mother Earth, whereas manual would be favorable to Mother Earth, showing humanity's affection to the nature. So the second concept is about mechanization of agriculture, which was popularized in India during Green Revolution. So there are many authors who told we should go for 100% mechanization of agriculture, while others told that there should be no mechanization. Whereas Miraben adopts a middle path here, tells that mechanization should be allowed, where tractors could be used sparingly. But as India is a labor surplus country, we can definitely use the love of the people on the nature by employing them to till the land and other concepts. So the next idea is very, very relevant for us, and we can directly link it to a current affairs topic also that is coming up. So here, wasteland is something where traditionally this land was used for cattle grazing in the villages. So cattle grazing is an important occupation, as cattle will give manure, nurturing the soil, and the whole cycle continues. But of late, we have brought this wasteland cultivation under food and cash crops. This has nothing but eradicated a whole land type that we had existing. And if you really recall, wasteland is the major breeding ground of great Indian bustard. So one of the major reasons why GIB is critically endangered today is because we have destroyed wasteland. So in any question, as we know, there has been a Supreme Court verdict also to create a program on the ground of Project Tiger to conserve GIB. If you get a question on how better we can conserve great Indian bustard, or how the ecology and agriculture needs to go hand in hand, you can directly mention the concept of Meera Bain, who's a popular environmentalist. So coming to the other two ideas she has discussed, it is of utmost important, again related to the current topics. It is related to the idea called irrigation schemes. So government had planned large multi-purpose multi-purpose projects like dams, and it was also called temples of modern democracy. But she told that because of this large reservoirs that are built, huge agriculturally productive land goes under water. It is not going to increase the yield, but is going to submerge a prosperous region in which we could have cultivated wonderfully good products. So at the same time, she talks about the role of masses here. That is, we have been fixed in a loop. Remember this idea to the talk concepts like consumerism. Please mention Mirabain's name in this consumerism topic of GS paper 1. That is impact of globalization on Indian society. So what is the loop we are found it to be struck in? We are stuck in a loop of produce and sell from the type side of manufacturers, and from the side of customers we just buy products, use them, and throw them. So we have seriously not given a major note to circular economy or recycling the waste in any manner. So this was a sad thing that the author was talking about. So the sixth point that we can discuss here is, this was the time when Mirabain was in her 80s. United Nations pioneered the cause of meeting internationally to talk about climate change. So she made a very popular statement that the experts who are meeting in talks of United Nations should not merely speak to themselves and among themselves. They have to include the larger public in general, who are not only victims of climate change but are also uh, suffering and have a major say in preventing climate change. So she tells that this was also the time when many people were negatively telling about what's the point of all this effort. Simply, it is something that is written in newspaper, read by some intellectuals, and they just debate at the international level, whereas there is no change in the ground level. So we should really not worry much about the concept of climate change. But Meera Bain here is so optimistic that she tells a very important statement which is aptly suitable for our COP29 that just took up. We are seeing that in South Korea's Busan there is a plastic pact that is undergoing. We'll see that there would be a upcoming conference to prevent desertification. All of them are directly related to an idea discussed here, that these are many times considered pessimistic because they don't have much implementation at the ground level. But Miraben tells that it is the duty of those who realize what is happening to make the truth reach the widest audience possible. What is the advantage? They can encourage constructive thinking and help the people to plan before it is too late. So it is about awareness creation. Or when you talk about the concept of Indian government called lifestyle for environment is a campaign to popularize the idea of reducing one's carbon footprint, we can definitely talk about Miraben's idea that it is responsibility of every Indian to have a carbon neutral lifestyle, encouraging the government to take up many measures towards environment protection. So do remember this discussion for GS paper 3 agriculture, where many counter ideas to popularly followed practices of irrigation is given. So if you want to talk about increasing agriculture or a climate resilient agriculture, Mirabain's concept would be apt in your GS paper 3 answers. So before we wind up, there's a small announcement for our viewers. Offline and online guidance program of Insights is being started from 2nd of January. So please tell your friends and relatives who would like to join Insights for a bright future with respect to UPSC preparation. And as you can see here, up to 28th December, there is an early bird offer. So do avail it and let everybody know about the initiative Insights is trying to do through OGP1. So thank you so much for staying with us. Stay tuned. Meet you in the next episode.